Here we go. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of March the 16th of the Columbus Municipal School Board. At this time, we will have invocation offered by Mr. Glenn Lotzenheiser, followed by the pledge, which is being led by Layla Sparks. She is a student at Stokes Beard Elementary School.
Okay, please bow your heads. Father, we thank you for our school district. We thank you for all who are involved in any capacity in our district. And Father, we just ask for your wisdom and discernment, your blessing upon them. And Father, as we're winding down this school year, we just pray that everyone will keep their focus and that our young people, as I said, will be motivated, as I said, Father, to achieve and to succeed. And we just pray your blessing upon all of their efforts and everything that is done in this district. And Father, I just pray for everybody who's associated with them and their families, and I ask that your guidance and protection and blessing be upon them. And I pray, Father, for this meeting tonight, that we will make the right decisions, help us to do those things that are always in the best interest of the boys and girls of our district. Now go with us, guide us, protect us, and bless us in everything that we do and everything that we say, for we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Sparks.
Can everyone please stand for the pledge? Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks. At this time, we do have a quorum present tonight, which brings us to open forum. We do have one person who has signed up for open forum, Mr. Mark G. Alexander, Jr. from East Mississippi Community College. Mr. Alexander.
Thank you. I represent East Mississippi Community College, Workforce Services. I've come here today to ask the board to allow us to use a portion of Hunt High School to administer services to the community. We would like to do basic skills, workforce services, and work keys test preparation. I've met with the superintendent and talked with him about using a portion of Hunt. We would cordon that portion off from the portion that's currently being used by Columbus Municipal School District students. There's also a portion upstairs, which has not been remodeled to current standards, that we would remodel. We've committed $7,500 in materials to remodel it, the remainder of which I would raise through public or private funds. So I'm asking if the board would see fit to allow us to use the portion of Hunt High School.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alexander. Board, what questions do we have?
Mr. Alexander,
Yes, ma'am.
good afternoon.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Just
having
to be
me.
clear, when you say use for the community, you're talking about the entire community of Columbus, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It could be anybody that would actually travel there, we would provide services. So, for instance, if they drove from, let's say, Hamilton, Monroe County, or Clay County, we would provide services. We're not going to turn them away. Traditionally, the services have been offered at Mayhew, which is, you know, a ways, and there's barriers to some people using those services. We're underway in moving services to Starkville, Columbus, Noxubee County, and also to Clay County, West Point. So what we're trying to do is eliminate those barriers. So somebody could walk or have a shorter drive than driving out 82 to Mayhew. So it would be open for everyone.
Have you made any, or EMCC, has EMCC projected the type of attendance numbers they would be looking at for the use of that facility?
We have not, but The numbers are not dependent on us keeping the facility open or opening the facility. I don't want to say we're opening it as a trial, but that's part of it. We're going to open it because I have the belief, and we have the belief, that people will show up and come. Now, some of the services we will offer will be demand-driven. For instance, we're going to offer basic manufacturing skills, which is the precursor to employment at Yokohama. That will be demand-driven. There's an entrance exam, the Work Keys exam. If we have enough people that will sign up for the Work Keys preparation and then take the Work Keys and pass, we'll offer the course there. So we're going to offer as much or as little as it can be, basically public demand-driven.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Leitzenheiser.
I'm looking at the request that you filled out to appear before us tonight, and you had mentioned at the beginning that you want permission to use a portion of Hunt, but I don't see on the request, what are we talking about? How much square footage or how much space are you actually asking for, sir?
I don't know the specific square footage, but if you're familiar with the facility in the front of Hunt, if you're looking at it from the road in the front, we're talking about the extreme southern portion downstairs. We're talking about 4 or 5 rooms. There's a portion upstairs, the corresponding portion upstairs has not been rehabilitated to the current standards. That portion would be rehabilitated, and the services currently offered downstairs by Columbus Municipal School District would go upstairs, and we would take that downstairs portion. The reason being is that the funding for this project is going to be via federal funds, and so we're going to have to be in strict compliance with ADA. We would also rehabilitate that bathroom on the extreme southern end of the building downstairs to be ADA compliant. So if you enter the building from the extreme southern end, those first 4 to 5 rooms plus that restroom, we'll cordon it off similar to when you enter the building from the front, that glass entrance there to enter the hallway. We'll build a similar structure and cordon off those 4 or 5 rooms.
Mr. Leitzenheiser.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
If the board approves this tonight, when would you anticipate beginning the program, sir?
Our timetable for the beginning of the program is July 1. Of course, if you approve it, we're going to have to make preparations to remodel the upstairs so that the school operations can move upstairs. So we would begin that process immediately. But our operations, as far as the commencement of the program, would be July 1.
Okay. And so, Dr. Hickman, if the board does approve what Mr. Alexander is asking, is that going to negatively infringe upon what we're doing at Hunt right now?
No, ma'am. It actually will complement the services that we offer.
Okay. And so, Mr. Dunn, from a legal standpoint, if we do grant this request, legally, what are we bound to do?
Well, we'd have to work out a lease arrangement, basically. There are some minimum requirements, such as insurance and things that East Mississippi Community College is going to have. So we would just work out the framework of a lease so that they hold us harmless and indemnify the school district and the trustees against any liability that might arise from their using the facility and that sort of thing. And if you want to take up the tentative approval subject to the lease being worked out, you could put that on your agenda tonight somewhere, and when you get ready to approve your agenda.
Okay, thank you. Last question, Dr. Hickman, for any of the physical changes that will take place with the structure, will any of that hinder, say for instance, they don't stay beyond 5 or however many years, would that hinder what we would need to use the facility for?
No, what we talked about, if they take over 4 or 5 classrooms to the extreme right side of the building, that they only have access and people associated with their program will only enter to one way, and we have that glass door structure, then we're fine. We still have 5 or so classrooms when you first walk in, and then, like they said, they're going to remodel help us remodel the 5 upstairs as well. And so it actually will complement the use of the building and benefit our kids in the community as well when we can have EMCC that close to us. And so we have kids so that we can automatically, once upon graduation, funnel to those programs to be able to build job-ready skills.
So those rooms that will be remodeled, you won't be taking those remodels with you. I mean, they'll stay because they're physical.
Oh, of course,
Permanent
yeah,
changes.
right.
Okay.
And we will remodel them to complement and to match what's already been remodeled at Hunt.
Okay. All right, Board, are there any other questions for Mr. Alexander? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Board, if we do want to consider this for tonight, we will make sure that when we get to the portion of our agenda that we take that into consideration. The next item on our agenda is the swearing-in of our new board members, Mr. Stephen Jones and Mrs. Curry Fisher, by Mr. Mayor Robert Smith, and Mayor Smith is here.
Well, we're going to have to do it one at a time. That's right, that's right. All right, okay. I'll do you first. Good evening, everyone. To the board, Mr. Chairman, it is an honor as well as a privilege to have this opportunity to swear in two board members. One has already served, Mrs. Fisher, and Mr. Jones is the new board member. So I'll do them just one at a time. So, Ms. Fisher, if you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Curry B. Fisher, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Mississippi, and obey the laws thereof, that I am not disqualified from holding the office of board member of the Board of Trustees of Columbus Municipal School District, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations. Raise your right hand and repeat after me, Mr. Jones. I, Stephen Jones,
I, Stephen Jones,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will faithfully support
that I will faithfully support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Mississippi,
and the Constitution of the State of Mississippi,
and obey the laws thereof,
and obey the laws thereof,
that I am not disqualified
that I am not disqualified
from holding the office
from holding the office
of board member
of board member
of the Board of Trustees
of the Board of Trustees
of Columbus Municipal School District,
of Columbus Municipal School District,
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
So welcome to the board, Mr. Jones. The first thing I would ask is that you make sure that your microphone is on. Just press the little green button. Perfect. All right. At this time, Board, we are now at the portion of our meeting where we need to adopt the agenda. This will require an action. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Yes.
I move that we add one item to the agenda before adoption, and that is item, the request by Mr. Alexander, which was item 4A, to utilize Hunt for EMCC, the WIN Job Center, and community activities. And this would be approval based on the agreement of contract as reviewed by our attorney.
The one thing that I was thinking about, Ms. Fisher, with that request is that, for me, I would love to see something in writing, you know, with what it is that they're really wanting to provide, just so that we can have the consideration to review it. But I will allow that, and when we get to that point, we can have further discussion. All right. Would you still like to amend the agenda to add that
I would like
item?
to amend the agenda to add that as an item for consideration for approval.
Okay. So I will,
What number would that be, please?
We are at currently item 6, and I've requested that item previously 4A be added for discussion. What point?
We're past four, so
how about we just make it item number 7, item number,
Item number 11, I'm sorry, yes, 11.
item number 11, yes, that'll be fine. And that's item number 11 under Office of Superintendent, which is Roman numeral number 8, and item number 11. Is everybody clear on that? Do you see that, Mr. Dunn?
Roman numeral 8.
Roman number 8, Roman numeral 8, Office of the Superintendent, and we'll make it number 11, which is under training opportunities for CMSD.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Is there a second to Mrs. Fisher's motion? Second. It has been motioned by Mrs. Fisher. It has been seconded by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the approval of minutes. Board, we've had the minutes and we've had an opportunity to review. We do have 2 sets of minutes to approve for February the 9th and January the 24th. If it is okay with the board, if we could just take both of those up at the same time. Okay? All right, all in favor of approving both sets of minutes, the first from February the 9th, the other from January the 24th, we do need a motion.
I think we've got a motion. Now, you mentioned 2 sets, isn't it 3 sets?
You have,
Aren't we looking at 3 sets of minutes as opposed to 2?
you have February the 9th and you have January the 24th.
Okay, and I'm looking, on my agenda, it says March the 4th. Maybe I'm looking at a different agenda, but I have March the 4th
That's
on here.
correct.
So there's 3 sets of minutes.
Okay,
So we have for February the 9th, which is listed first on the list that I have. And then you have January the 24th. And then you have March the 4th,
right, yeah, that's
which was
what
the
I'm
school
looking at.
tour meeting.
Yep,
Right, is there a
based-
motion?
Yeah, based on that, I will make a motion that we approve collectively these 3 sets of minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spears, motion by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the approval of all 3 sets of minutes, please signify by the raising of your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Superintendent. First, you have special recognition. Dr. Hickman.
Ms. Lenore?
Good afternoon,
Good
Madam
afternoon.
President. At this time, we would like to begin our recognitions for the afternoon. It always gives us such great pleasure to be able to recognize our accomplishments of the students in our district. So tonight, we will start out by asking you, Board, to please join Dr. Hickman down front for these recognitions. We will start recognizing students from Stokes Beard Elementary Magnet School who recently participated in the stock market game. The students who we will recognize placed third in the Mississippi Stock Market game. And just to give you a little bit of overview about the stock market game, these teams of students were allowed to invest a hypothetical $100,000 in the stock market over a 15-week period. And needless to say, these students went on to win third place across our state. They outperformed the S&P by 7.4% and grew their portfolio to $106,987 over the 15-week session. So we might need to take some lessons from these students in investments. So the students who we are recognizing tonight, congratulations goes to, and I have to say that I am super proud because these are my former babies. And I'm not trying to steal Miss Gardner's thunder, but they are my babies too. Congratulations goes to Jenny Evans, Sydney Holt, and Karina Patel. Stand right up there, Jenny. Take a picture. Stand right over there, bow. Great job. We also have another group of students from Stokes-Beard. This is a group of gifted students who recently participated in the first LEGO League North Mississippi Robotics Tournament in Oxford, Mississippi. And the LEGO Challenge was comprised of 4 scoring units: the project, which was a research-based problem that the students were given, the robot design, the game and how the robot actually performed, and core values, which was a teamwork challenge. The Stokes-Beard Olympic Spirit team won first place in the project portion of the challenge. So congratulations to these students. Congratulations, and students, we would like for you to come up once I call your name. Congratulations to Zion Johnson, Jenny Evans, Sydney Holt, Karina Patel, Michaela Reeves, and Layla Sparks. Congratulations to each of you. Great job, students. Great job. Okay, we will continue recognitions from students who recently participated in the science fair at Columbus High School. The students who we are recognizing tonight are those who placed first in the upper fair, which was held at Mississippi State University on February the 17th. And each of these students did place first in their respective divisions, and they are eligible to compete in the state fair, which will be held at the University of Southern Mississippi on March the 24th. So we are excited to see what the results of that competition will be. So the students' names that I am going to call, some of them are not here. We realize that high school students are involved in quite a bit, so this time of the year does bring about a lot for them. So students, when you hear your name, please come forward to receive your certificate. Taylor Wilson, Caitlin Wilson, Tyler Wilson, Zoe Fowler, Jessica Verdale, Chris Gray, Kenosha Gardner, Asia Gordon, Jack Fox, Joshua Bridges, Rashida Roy, Laurel Yarborough, Paige Gerald, Tom Moore Hatcher, Devarcianta Williams, Yanisha James, Russell Hatcher, Mary Warsham, and Joshua Williams. Congratulations to each of you. We will be following up to see how each of you fare in the state science fair. Congratulations again to each of you for your hard work. Yeah. We have a special set of recognitions that we will present tonight. We always think about the people who are in the trenches and who are in our schools on a daily basis and the service that they provide to us within our district. So starting with this month, principals were asked to select a staff member that they would like to see recognized by the Board of Trustees and the superintendent. So this month we will begin with recognitions from Cook, Fairview, and Franklin, and we will continue this until we have recognized staff from each of our schools in the district. So we will start off this afternoon with the special recognitions for outstanding professional service with Ms. Heather Rowland from Cook. Ms. Rowland, please come forward. And this is the information that her principal shared with us about her. She is an integral part of the Cook team. She is willing to give of her time and talent to see that the extras at Cook happen in order to serve the students. She regularly works with the after-school programs, registration, light and sound for weekend events, and provide leadership in both fine arts and curriculum. She is respected and loved by her peers and contributes to the successful culture at Cook. Thank you so much for the support that you give on a daily basis. Next, we have Coach Terry Gooch from Franklin. And what was shared with us about Coach is that Coach Gooch is a dedicated educator. She goes above and beyond what is required of her daily. She is committed to serving the students at Franklin and works to educate the whole child. She has a good rapport with all students and staff at Franklin. Even though her main assignment is PE coach, she coordinates the school's wellness activities with the YMCA and MUW. Coach Gooch is also instrumental in organizing Franklin's backpack program with community stakeholders. She is a positive influence in the school and deserves this recognition. Congratulations, Coach. And the final recognition that we have is Ms. Mildred Ford from Fairview. Is Ms. Ford present? Ms. Ford. Ms. Ford has been a part of the Fairview Elementary team since August 2010, where she started as a first-grade teacher. She has gained a wealth of knowledge and experience in her 25-plus years of teaching. She has served in every level in the K-12 educational system. She has been the curriculum coordinator at Fairview for the past 3 years, always participates in or assists all stakeholders in helping to provide students with a quality education. Her workday often extends way past the typical 8 hours. Her hard work and dedication is very instrumental to Fairview. Thank you, Ms. Ford, for all that you do. And that concludes our recognitions. Come right on. Thank you, Coach. That's a PE coach for you.
Thank you, Dr. Hickman, for those recognitions. The next item, please. Which would be the goal updates in accordance to policy BA. And I think you have
That would
10
be
areas.
Ms. Adams. If we can have you talk about family partnerships.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Hickman, thank you all for this opportunity. I did prepare for you, in the interest of time, a handout sheet that you should have gotten when you arrived this evening. What this entails are our district-wide parental involvement activities. While many of the schools have their individual activities they do to involve parents, your first sheet are our completed activities from August 1st through December of last year, and your second sheet are the planned activities for spring semester that will end with the close of school this year. Just a couple of things that I would like to highlight. Our McTeachers Nights, which Dr. Hickman allowed us to start this past fall, have been extremely successful. To date, we have $2,963.20 in sales and tips that were granted to schools, monies that they could use for purposes, for whatever purpose they desired. So we also have 2 more scheduled, and we hope to have more coming in the fall. We've got some theme nights scheduled, and we did one for Valentine's Day. So that's been very successful. We also had a very successful movie night, which we plan to repeat this semester. We had 861 people go with us in the fall. So we have another one planned for April 7th. And as you can see from the Jamestown fire victims, we collected $8,116, and the $1,300 that was left we gave out in gift cards. And through the Columbus Police Department Toy Drive, we served 500 families at Christmas. Real quickly, as far as our planned activities, we do have 2 movies scheduled for April the 7th. We're going back for movie night. We're going to do elementary and then high and middle school. We do have McTeachers Nights for March 28th and April 28th. And the thing that I do want to most highlight is that we start this week with Dr. Hickman having his Pathway Town Hall meetings in our community. There are 4 scheduled, and you'll see the dates that are there. We're having businesses come in on Thursday at 1 o'clock, and we're getting a very, very, very great response from them so far as their attendance. And McDonald's is going to give us a scholarship gala on May 28th, and we'll present further details. Are there any questions?
Board, are there any questions for Mrs. Adams?
Just a comment. Mrs. Adams, I really want to thank you for bringing the community into partnership with our school district and making it such fun in the process, both with movie nights and the McTeachers Night. So thank you very much.
Mr. Leisnizer?
Yeah, Ms. Adams, I want to ask you one question about the book drive for grades K through 2. Now, that will be every K through 2 class in the district?
Yes, sir.
And
we are coordinating our efforts so that we don't
and where will we be
duplicate.
getting the books from? Do we know the vendor or source at this point?
We're working through 2 sources. First of all, Dr. Hickman has asked that I explore the community making donations of the books, but I've also been in conversations with Quay Austin and the group from First Books to make sure that we're not duplicating any services in the schools that are already being offered. What he has proposed is that we build a home library for every student pre-K through 2. And that's what he's asked us to do. So that's something we're working on, as I said, and as we get details, we'll present that information. But again, we are going to coordinate our efforts to ensure that we're not duplicating anything that's already being done.
Dr. Hickman?
Yes, and Mr. Lawson, I'm glad you asked that question. One of the things that the research is clear on is that when you have a preschooler through second grade, the more books that are in their home library is equate to more kids reading on grade level by third grade. And so it really helps to build the literacy of a child. It benefits us and benefits the child that we be able to equip that child or that youngster with books within the home so that they have access. But our goal, whether there's a deficit in the home or not of books, is to make sure that every preschooler through through second grade within our district, that we provide them with those books.
Okay, thank you.
And so I am asking the community to come together to help us in donating gently used books and those kind of things so that we can disaggregate the books according to grade levels and be able to disseminate them to our children.
right.
Madam
Mrs.
President,
Spears?
one question I have is, I know obviously our focus is K through, beyond, but I know there are other programs, just because I know my children, they also receive books through Imagination Library. And so what is it that we can do as far as students that may have younger siblings that come to registration, or parents that we know have children that are 1-year-old or 2-year-old or something along those lines, to help facilitate with existing programs in the community to link up and help them get into those programs so that by the time that they get to kindergarten, they've already had 4 years or 5 years worth of books that are age appropriate for them, and then of course continue to transition into this program and other programs throughout school.
I think that's a wonderful idea. One of the things that we're not trying to do is cross lines with anyone else, but we're trying to fill in the gaps. And the different programs that's out there, a lot of times it's only for a select kids. So we want to make sure that every youngster, and like you said, if we can piggyback on that continuum,
Right.
then that really works out well. So we're one of the charge that we're going to do is we're reaching out to everyone and the organizations that's already out there and that's successful, so that, one of the reasons is so that we can see how it's done correctly. And the other thing is that we can fill in the gaps of, where the students that don't have books and be able to increase, like you said, the library of all our kids and have that continuum from younger to old.
Well, and I guess that's my question is, obviously, is, us being kind of a center of influence in the census, that we could have a census of some kind, knowing what children have, kindergartner, but there's also a 2-year-old toddler at home that we could still work with existing programs, or at least inform their parents about how they could get those children signed up, or help facilitate that to continue to have that from when they're born all the way through school.
You're right.
Reading as a process.
It says really, the other part of the research is also 0 to 3.
Right.
And so you're right. If we can get, one of the programs that I've seen very successful in the past is really work with hospitals of newborns, that they equip mothers with books and make sure that practice of reading the kids within the stomach and reading the kids that are just born and those kind of things. And so, yeah, there's a lot that we're going to go with this program, and she just wanted to get the information out and lay down the groundworks, and thanks for that guidance so we can really increase it.
We do appreciate the information, and one of the reasons that we did want to include it, so that if there are other resources, one of the things that Dr. Hickman did charge me to do was to ensure that we coordinate with the existing services that are already there, and we're basically going to add on. And at one time, there was a program at the hospital where they did work with, we worked all the way down to newborns. So if you do know, if anyone does know of any services, we would be glad to know what they are so that we can coordinate and work with them. But this is one of the goals that we have.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Adams. Dr. Hickman, technology update.
But, pardon, before we move on, can I ask one more question? Just occurred to me. How many books do we anticipate each child receiving through this book drive? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Technology update.
And obviously, that's just the start of the year. I know you want technology update. If we can start with technology update.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Hickman. Thank
Good
you
evening.
for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about our short-term goals and our long-term goals in technology. Some of the things that we have going on now, as far as a short-term goal, our infrastructure needs to be upgraded to allow us to do some one-to-one and bring your own device the way that we want to do it. One of those items is our internet access. Excuse me. Mississippi Department of Education provides us with an internet circuit at no cost to the district. We could go out and do our own and pay for it, but they're providing that for us. Our circuit was 100 megabits until the Friday before spring break, when we upgraded to 250 megabits. When we started doing some things with BYOD, we found that we were maxing out around 90. So we have that in place being provided to us. If we need more, we request it from them, and they will go ahead and provide us with more bandwidth if needed. But we have to prove that we need it. They're not going to give us bigger circuits if we're not using what we have. The second item that needs to happen within our district is to upgrade our wireless. We've mentioned before that E-Rate is providing funding for 2015-2016 on a 5-year program, focusing on wireless, which is really good news for us, and it's coming at a very good time with new implementations of wireless coming out. So the idea is to leverage E-Rate to have consistent wireless access across our schools. Excuse me, I think the pollen is really getting to me this afternoon. Currently, some of our schools have had wireless for quite some time. So what we have there is slower than what we have in some other schools. But we want to get to the point that we have consistently great wireless in all of our schools. New computers and tablets. The computers for elementary schools and for CMS have been installed. The laptops that we asked the board to allow us to purchase. The computers for CHS were delayed a little bit because of the number of computers we needed to purchase. We had to get special spending authority from the Mississippi ITS. Those were actually delivered this afternoon, and they're sitting in our department. They have to be unpacked, they have to be tagged, and they have to be imaged, but we're ready to go on those as soon as, full steam ahead. So they will be at CHS shortly. And additionally, Project Lead the Way is providing a set of 30 tablets for each of our elementary schools. We're very, very excited about that because, especially for the younger kids, they seem to be able to manipulate a tablet a little bit better, especially when school first starts, before they've learned to use a mouse or something. One of the other things that we have going on right now is our green room in the TV studio at Stokes Beard. We are purchasing some enhancements that will allow us to do, to create our own content using characters created by Wonder Grove kids and using their software. So instead of just kids doing the newscast, they can interact with a Wonder Grove kids character that is to be created for our district by that company. It means that they're creating content. And so it's a very exciting thing for us, I believe. Of course, we have the subscription for pre-K through 2, and the kids have just reacted to those characters in such a positive way. We actually did a survey asking teachers what happens, and the things that came back were, hey, I'm seeing my kids doing the things that we're showing them through those characters out in the hall. So they're hearing it. They are really connecting with it. So it's a very exciting project. So with this project, we're had to buy a couple of computers. We're putting in some updated lights in that studio. The newer lights, the LEDs that don't just glare in your eyes. So very, very excited about that. We're hoping to be at the point to do training and that sort of thing in April. Learning Earnings is another thing that we're busy implementing this month. And Learning Earnings is a way to award students for whatever a school official or a teacher would like to do. It's integrated into the STI gradebook, so a teacher can just give students credits, and they have their account, and each school has their store, and a student can go in there and use their credits to, it may be a homework pass, or it could be a bigger item that they save up for, but we believe that we can really use it to enhance positive awards for attendance, for not having disciplinary actions, and for grades. So we're very excited about that as we move into that this month. Bring your own device. We implemented that at CHS before Christmas, and we have some students bringing their own device. There's some things that that teachers can do with those things that to get kids excited about school, and we're very happy about that. Of course, that's one of the things that is hinging on having better wireless. Columbus High School has the slowest wireless in the district because they've had it the longest between Stokes and CHS. So the wireless project is very important for that, and we hope to implement it at CMS next year, allowing students to bring their own devices. Access to data, we're working on ways to provide data to stakeholders in a more concise way. One of the things that we have going on right now is STI is developing a discipline dashboard that will be available for central office administrators, principals, etc. It's in development right now, but expected to be delivered very soon. Once they have it in place for us, then they will roll it out to other districts too. It's just that we ask for it. Hopefully they expect it to be ready very soon. And then the Engrade project, we've populated the database, and now we're working to bring assessment data in from the different sources, and we will be looking at training for that very soon also. Communication is something that we're working hard in the district to improve as far as our website and social media, using Facebook and Twitter, sending text messages through our Falcon Blast. We can do that. Also, an Instagram account. Janet's working hard to get some photos of things going out that way, because we know people also look at that. Additionally, one of the things we may want to do is a custom app for our district for phones and that kind of thing. The other thing is long-range goals, a one-to-one initiative, and what does that look like? There are a lot of things to consider. One-to-one initiative could be one-to-one in the classroom, or it could be one-to-one in which students take computers home. We do need to look at some pilots as far as that goes, so that we can get a feel for it. Maybe like a 5th grade classroom, some high school students. We already have our IB students taking computers home, so that's been sort of a pilot for us for a long time, and we have Stokes-Beard with one-to-one computing within the classroom. But there are different ways to do it, and looking at what and how to best implement that in the district. And of course, we need the supports in place to do any of any of those things. Internet connectivity, where we need to be at this moment, and our wireless project, we need to get to that point so that we can do more with that. Also, We believe teachers need to have training so that they know how to make that technology really make a difference in the classroom instead of people just having devices. We want it to make a difference. And students need ongoing training in the proper use of technology and digital citizenship. It needs to be ongoing all year. So those are the supports that we need to have in place as a long-range plan. And so, like I said, we're currently looking at what are the best groups to do pilots with. The other long-term goal is a continuous upgrade cycle, whether it's what we currently have or whether it's a one-to-one initiative. We have to upgrade some devices every single year. To me, if, for instance, if we had a one-to-one initiative, it may be grades 5 through 12. We could put new computers in the 5th grade and then in the 9th grade and roll those out every single year. So those are the kinds of things that we're taking a look at.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Tippett. Board, are there any questions for Mrs. Tippett at this point? Dr. Hickman?
Yeah, real quick, the other true one-to-one initiative that we're going to look at, and this is long range, is really look at the research of getting the technology in the kids' hands to take home. And so that's the next aspect of it, meaning that we're going towards one-to-one within the school building, but then how does that work with our older kids to be able to take it home and have a flipped classroom model? And so we're either considering Stokes Beard or the middle school or high school, where to start that kind of model where teachers are still able to interact and kids are still able to learn at home in that continuation of learning model. So that's long range, just to kind of prepare you guys. As far as the board's concerned, we're really going to have to look for your leadership to develop policy to see how do we put that in place and those kind of things. We're working on developing a digital citizenship book to be able to equip our kids or educate our kids on cyberbullying and all those kind of things that are inappropriate, sending pictures and those kind of things that we really need to equip our kids with to give them a knowledge base on what's appropriate ways to communicate in social media and those kind of things.
Okay. The one thing that I would ask Dr. Hickman for the technology goal, which is goal number 2, much like the academic piece, that we be presented written information so that we can compare the information that you're giving us to the benchmarks and the measures and the indicators that we put in place so that we can know if we are green for a go, if we're yellow, we need to be cautious about something, or if it's a red and it's a no-go. So I do ask that going forward that we get that information. And really, if what Ms. Tippett shared today, if you could get that and put it out on our board book for us to review, that would be good.
Excellent.
Board, do we have any questions, any concerns? Okay, next we do have the whole child model update.
Yes, and I have Ms. Lenore.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Hickman. Ms. Tippett touched on a lot of the things that we're doing in regards to the whole child model, especially the social emotional component of that. She talked about Wonder Grove Kids and how that's being implemented. We are using the Wonder Grove Kids in each of the pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms each day, where teachers play a short video clip and it has different desired behaviors for the students to learn and for them to be able to react to. It also allows the teachers to have printables that go along with the digital piece of it. Ms. Tippett also mentioned the learning earnings. That's a big portion of our social emotional component, and that kickoff has taken place and it's currently underway in the district, started here in March, and we're hearing very positive things about learning earnings and can't wait to see where that piece is going to eventually take us. The final piece that we wanted to discuss tonight regarding the whole child model was the Caught in the Act program that actually is our positive behavior incentive and character education program that's being implemented across the district. And basically the goal of this program is to teach our students the importance of having good character. And it centers around the 4 R's, and you've heard Dr. Hickman talk about the 4 R's: respect, responsibility, responsiveness, and resourcefulness. And to date, we have had 2 students who have been quote-unquote caught in the act. And the last student was Hunter Perrigan, who we have all had the pleasure of meeting here at our board meetings, and he was featured on WCBI last month. So that's a brief update as it relates to the whole child and the social-emotional component.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Lenore. Board, are there any questions for Mrs. Lenore? Dr. Hickman.
Yes, and I want to make sure, just to clarify, we had more than 2 students who were caught in the act, and we have a lot of students daily who are caught in the act. But the students that take it to the next level that we refer to our to the news was those 2 students, and we just started in January, so we had a January student and a February student.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hickman. Again, for this, the whole child model as it correlates to goal number 4, if the board could be presented with something in writing, so again, we can make the comparison to the measures to know how we're faring. Next item, school climate survey status.
Ms. Lenore?
We have been working on school climate surveys. Currently, we have 2 surveys that we are looking at and analyzing for use for school climate. And we plan to have those surveys selected within the next couple of weeks, and we'll administer those surveys in the month of April. So we do have 2 that we are currently looking at, and we'll make a decision between those 2 surveys. In addition to those surveys, we are in the process of gathering information through our federal programs, comprehensive needs assessment surveys. Those surveys have been active for a little bit over a month now. There is a link to the surveys on our district website, and we do have paper copies of the surveys available. So far, we are gathering information from faculty and staff, from parents, from community, and from students. We are wanting more participation, especially from parents, from our federal programs, comprehensive needs assessment, and principals have been asked to send out a Falcon Blast requesting parents to complete those surveys, and those surveys will close on Friday, and after they close, we will have data available to be able to share with you from the information that we receive from those.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Lenore. Board, are there any questions? If not, that takes us to the report on student achievement for goal number 1.
Mr. Pugh?
Members of the board, Dr. Hickman, we have provided you with a fall to spring comparison of math and English language arts data from the ELS benchmarks given in December and February. In these tests, we saw increases on 18 of the tests taken, decreases on 15 of the tests taken, and 0 change as far as the percent correct on 5 tests taken. There seems to be consistency between the Columbus Municipal School District and the ELS group, which is 6,000 plus students across the state, in that if we decreased, they also decreased. Same with increases. According to ELS, both the math and ELA assessments were more difficult based on the recommendation from Park. Math saw the use of more text entry questions, less multiple choice. ELA saw the Lexile levels increase. District-wide, there were 22 tests where the gap was closed, whether it was an increase or a decrease. The number of tests where the gap increased was 10. Where there was an equal percentage increase was 4. Equal decrease or no change, 2. The number of tests where the gap was closed seemed to be more prevalent in ELA than in math. So going school by school, Columbus High School, the Algebra 1 comparison data, while both groups did decrease, we did close the gap. Same is true with 10th grade English. With the middle school, 6th grade math, there was an equal drop. 7th grade math, we closed the gap. 8th grade math, the gap increased. With English language arts, 6th grade, the gap increased. 7th grade math, we closed the gap. 7th grade English language arts, closed the gap, and likewise with 8th grade. With Cook Elementary, We closed the gap in third, fourth, and fifth grade in math. Not fifth grade, just third and fourth. With ELA, we did close the gap third, fourth, and fifth grade. With Fairview Elementary, third grade math, fourth grade math, we closed the gap. Fifth grade math, there was an equal increase. English language arts comparison, third grade, the gap increased between the two. Fourth grade and fifth grade, we closed the gap. With Franklin, third grade math, the gap was closed. Fourth grade, there was an equal increase. Fifth grade, the gap increased. Third grade ELA, the gap closed in third and fourth grade, and there was an equal decrease in fifth grade. With Sale Elementary math, there was an equal increase in third grade. We closed the gap in fourth grade. Fifth grade, there was a gap increase. For ELA, third grade, the gap closed, as it did in fourth and fifth grade. Stokes Beard, third grade math, there was an equal increase. Fourth grade math, there was a gap increase. Fifth grade, gap increase. For ELA, third and fourth grade, there was a gap increase. Fifth grade saw the gap close. One of the things that ELS provides with all of the testing, they give us an item analysis, and with that item analysis, it shows the objective, the percent correct by school district, the ELS group, the actual test item, the correct answer, the percentage of each student answering each choice, the list of students who are selecting those choices. So teachers can really drill down and figure out, is it a large group of kids missing this one particular type of item? How do I target that? How do I refine my instruction? So it's a very powerful tool in which we can individualize what we're doing in the classroom. And we will be meeting with principals once a month as part of data meetings to discuss how they're using this same data and how they're communicating its use with teachers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Board, what questions do we have? Okay. So, Mr. Pugh, if I understand correctly, the data that you gave us today, the comparison from the fall reports to the ones that we're looking at now for the spring, we understand, we know as a district what questions students missed and what objectives they didn't quite get right, so that we can go back and make sure that we're able to share that with teachers and they know what it is that the kids really need to learn and what targets to hit. Okay, board, do we have any questions about that? I think that's powerful information, that we know that and that we have that to drive what we're supposed to do, you know, for corrective action measures. So thank you very much for that information.
You're welcome.
Next.
All right, Mr. Pugh, so from a total standpoint as a district, on all our assessments, did we increase as a whole? How much, or what percentage, or what number of tests did we increase in? What number of tests did we stay the same, decrease, or those kind of things?
We saw increases on 18 tests.
Out of how many?
Out of 38. Mm-hmm. Decreases on 15 tests, and zero change in 5 tests. But everywhere that the school district decreased, there seemed to be very consistent data that showed that ELS also decreased.
Right.
Same as with the increases. And we closed the gap, whether it was increased or decreased, on 22 of the 38 tests.
Right. So make sure when you increase or decrease, you're just talking about the patterns as a whole. But as far as in a comparison group to how we were with the state kids who took the ELS, we closed the gap out of the 38, 22 of our assessment tools. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And so that's very powerful. I mean, our teachers are doing the right thing. Our principals are doing the right thing. Out of 38 tests, 22, we have caught up and closed the gap with the population of the state that took our tools. So that's a round of applause to our parents, our kids, A round of applause to our teachers and our principals.
Our teachers. Very good. All right, so the next item to be reported on is that of, really it's for information only, board. We've had the test calendar to be presented to us, and there's nothing really to share. Is there, Dr. Hickman? Okay. The next item is that of student attendance, which correlates to goal number 1.
That's Ms. Beth.
If we have the graph that we provide you each month, and it's a little for February, we have a lot of yellow up there. But we had that week of bad weather that we think it's related to. We had an early release day. We had a morning that we came in late, and we had 2 days out. Now, this is ADA, so it's average daily attendance. So the number of days was adjusted in the calendar, but we believe that parents maybe didn't send their children to school, or they picked them up too early, and that has something to do with it. We also believe that part of it is due to illnesses, because we were still very much in flu season during that month.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tippett. Dr. Hickman, I know I asked this question once before, but in terms of identifying individual students who may have chronic absences, what are we doing to be able to understand that data?
Yeah, I'm glad that, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, it's actually not the average daily attendance that has an effect on student achievement.
Right.
It's the chronic attendance. It's individual students who miss 10 days or more. And so just like Mr. Pugh alluded to, every month we're having data meetings with our principals, and we have data meetings over the big 3, and that is attendance, behavior, and achievement. And so they come and present their data, and it's a conversation. And so when we see those patterns, it's for the principals to present to us, this is the reason why, whether they're good or bad. These are the things that we're doing to that keep it being good, or these are the things they're doing to fix what's being bad. And then we're taking those best practices, even amongst the colleagues of principals and buildings, and we're sharing them. So we're also able to add to conversations. We're able to share best practices. But a part of that, when you look at attendance, their job is to really look at who are those individual students. One of the things that we're going to be leading to, and I already talked to my staff about, and the principals, is to eventually to have a strong data room at each building, so that when we do walkthroughs of the buildings, that the principals could take us to the data rooms. And what I'm going to ask is that they put a face, a student's picture on the areas that are concerned, so they know that this is an individual student and this is who that student is, and so that their teachers and staff can really do interventions that's pertinent for that youngster, whether it's the behaviors, or whether it's low academic achievement, or whether it's chronic attendance.
So as we move forward, that will be another point to measure. That'll be another data point that we can measure for students who have chronic absences, so that we can trend that and see, you know, how are we doing in terms of reducing the number of days that students, individual students, are absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Those with chronic absences.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
That's real important to look at what interventions are necessary.
Madam President, I got just a quick
Ms.
question.
Spears?
You know, obviously this goes through 2/27. What if we have a student or a couple of students that started the month with the district in, say, at the early part of February, and then a couple of days into the month, they transferred to a different school? Maybe they went to the county, went to a public school or a private school or anything else. Are those students reflected as part of a contributing problem as far as the way that they're calculated in this report?
It's average days based on the enrollment each day. So a student enrolls during the month, they would have an entry on that day. If a student withdraws, they have a withdrawal date. So the enrollment changes each day. It's average daily attendance. It's based
Sure.
on your enrollment every day.
So just so that I can clear this out of my mind, because I was thinking through it, if we started the year in August, September with 4,500 students,
Right.
and over since that point till now, not dropout included, I guess we could include it in this number, we had 300 students that are no longer in the district.
Mhm.
Maybe now we're down to 4,200 students. will that affect the percentages of what we're seeing here?
It's percentages.
No.
It's average daily attendance.
I-
The
I
percentage of
grasp
enrolled
that. Okay.
students who were at school that day.
Okay.
And an enrollment report would be something different. But
Okay.
it's the percentage of students
Okay.
enrolled on on
Gotcha.
any given day
I
that's
follow
there.
you on that. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that answers my question.
Okay.
Now, my next question is, with the rules looking to be changed as far as the amount of time that has to be in the classroom, will that affect how this particular report is presented to us going forward?
No, it can add to the report, meaning
Okay.
that we still will have average daily attendance. We can look at it overall because that still means something to us as a trend data as a district. But our funding is not, should not, hopefully,
Sure.
if the legislators come through, it would not be based on our average daily attendance. It would be based on the amount of students who are enrolled, which, you know, it's actually a big discrepancy when you look at districts around
But
the
as it
country.
is now, we're being penalized.
Yes, sir. If so, the reason why it really affects Mississippi is that there's a 63 or something like that % rule. So if a kid was here for a majority of the day and a parent took their child out before a certain time to go to a doctor's visit, they're counted as absent. We lose that funding for that youngster. So yeah, that's the real reason why districts are kind of up in arms and hopefully leading a charge to change that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. The next item is the dropout report.
Okay, and I'm going to throw it to Ms. Lenore, but I'm going to add a precursor, and I want to make sure I make a footnote or a correction to something that we presented last time. I think what we presented last time to the board was that we had 0 students who had dropped out, and that information was actually incorrect. It was a coding error. The students were being coded at something totally different. The good thing is, when we followed up, as always, and contacted each student that had dropped out, what they were overage kids, severely overage kids, who continuously didn't pass the tests within our district. And they didn't drop out, meaning that, well, they dropped out, but they didn't drop out, meaning that they just went home and didn't do anything. They actually were helped to immediately be enrolled in a, and Ms. Lenore is going to talk about it, but in a GED program or Job Corps or some of those things. So we didn't abandon our students. Not that I want any youngster to drop out, but that was the case in there. And I do want to apologize and get this out before, because we did say that we had 0 students. And I think the number is actually, it was 11 from the beginning of the year. If you want to talk about that.
Yes, sir. Actually, as of the latest report that we do have 12 students who have been coded as dropout. And keep in mind that we do code students who have been expelled as a dropout. So we have 2 students that fit into that particular category. So as we start to look at the numbers, you can see how the graphs gives us the numbers as the students have dropped out across the course of the school year. But as we took a look at that data and drilled down a little bit deeper into it, we know that we have 5 of those students are grade 9, 5 of those students are grade 10, and 2 of those students are at grade 11. And as Dr. Hickman stated, we had 9 of those students to drop out due to overage issues. 1 was for other reason, and then 2 of those were for expulsions. And as he stated, the overage students they either left school for GED or they enrolled in the Job Corps program somewhere. Those are the notes that we have for each of those students, because we have been able to track and identify where those students that were coded as dropouts, where they actually ended up going. So they did end up in some type of program, the ones that did decide that school was no longer an option for them. So that's the information that we have for dropout. Also in that section of the agenda, we had prevention strategies for dropout and senior failure. If you're ready for me to
Yes, please.
speak to that at this time. Currently, just to give you an idea, we have 245 students classified as seniors, and that was current as of today, March 16th. and we ran a report and received information from the counselors at Columbus High School back a couple of weeks ago that told us that 58 of our seniors are at risk of not graduating due to needing one subject area test, at least one subject area test for graduation. In the meantime, since we received the original report, we received our December retest information from their SATP2s, and 8 of these students did pass one of those subject area tests needed for graduation, which now gives us a total of 50 students who are at risk of not graduating. So I do want to give you some of the strategies that we have in place to work with these students. Currently, the counselors at Columbus High School have analyzed each of these students' transcripts, and they've explored each of the graduation options that are allowed by the Mississippi Department of Education, and we have taken those 58 students who we originally had 58, so I'm going to speak on the number 58 because this is the information that the data supports. Currently, we have 34 students who the counselors have projected to work with them on a traditional option for graduation, and 24 of those students, they are working with the district option, which is a 21-credit opt-out program for them to be able to graduate. Of these 58, we currently have 10 students who are enrolled in dual enrollment courses at EMCC. Any student who makes a C of better in any of these courses will be allowed to have that course replaced by the subject area test that they're missing. So we're working with 10 students in that fashion through dual enrollment at EMCC. We also have worked to make sure that these students are signed up for the ACT, which will be given in April. Any student that scores a 17 on the ACT will have that portion of the SATP that they need to pass replaced by the ACT. We also have the after-school academy where SATP remediation is taking place for those students who may still lack the Algebra 1, the Biology 1, the English, or the U.S. History test. So we're actually, right now, the counselors are looking at their attendance and they're making contact with the parents to make sure that these students are in attendance for these particular after-school programs. In addition to the after-school academy, there's the credit recovery program for those seniors who've been identified as might be needing a couple more credits to meet their particular option for graduation. And I mentioned parent notification. They have initiated meetings for these, for the parents of these identified students, and letters will be sent home with these students, letting the parents know exactly what the student needs in order to graduate. So the counselors are working extremely hard to make sure that these seniors have opportunities to graduate.
Very good. Dr. Hickman?
Yeah, just want to add real quick. The other issue when we looked at, when we were talking about the overage, and if you noticed that we had a lot of freshmen, that's kind of the problem that we were trying to head off at the beginning of the year when we looked at our middle school, and we saw that we had over 100 and something kids who are overage, and therefore we built an academy at Hunt. And so when EMCC is talking about fixing, help supporting and fixing that upper, what we would do is, so to head off the kids who are 16 and 17 years old right now in 8th grade, to head them off for coming to high school, they don't do well the first semester and then they drop out. What we're going to do is start funneling those kids at that academy at Hunt and really have a smaller class setting with those youngsters and really get those youngsters started. Once they become successful, hopefully their sophomore or junior year, then we start to funnel those youngsters back to the traditional high school where they're able to be successful. We're able to fast track those youngsters during a 4x4 scheduling so that they can earn more credits to be able to catch up with their same age peers and graduate on time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hickman. Board, are there any questions? All right. If not, that brings us to the teacher attendance report.
Mr. Pugh?
Okay, you have been provided 4 reports, I believe. The first one, the top graph, top chart, is for the month of February. If they are green, the school was at 95%. Yellow means they were between 90 and 94%. And that is compared to January in the chart below. So we took a dip in teacher attendance in multiple schools. The next page, this is January. There were 19 days reported. So you have 85, as an example, 85 staff members at the high school. To be on target, and they had 97 absences. So to be in the green, they would have to have either between 0 and 81.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that report will read to you.
Okay.
And that's for the month of January, and there's a report for the month of February as well. And then the other absence analysis is a report that we can generate through Kelly Services that shows the types of leave that are being requested for those days.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Board, are there any questions about teacher attendance? Mr. Pugh, do you have anything on the strategies to improve teacher daily attendance?
All of the schools have submitted ways that they're going to try to improve teacher attendance, ranging from blue jean days, duty-free lunches, certain types of theme days, gift cards given by the principal, lunch. I think one in here was some kind of order-in Fridays. So I'm guessing they're going to order some kind of lunch. The nice thing about something like this is there's a variety of strategies.
Right.
So if one seems to work at one place and doesn't work at another, you can say, well, have you tried this one?
Right. All right,
So.
thank you, Mr. Pugh. Board, are there any questions?
I guess it's more of an observation, and maybe I'm critical about it. I mean, running my business and different things, but I'm not opposed to Blue Jean Day and different things like that. I mean, obviously, because I don't know what others endure, but I mean, there's got to be something more that's creating. I mean, obviously, you can see the breakdown as to what's going on, but I mean, to incentivize people to come to work when you're being paid to come to work, I mean, seems kind of counterintuitive. I mean, that's your incentive to come to work, in my mind. And I may be putting my foot in my mouth, but hey, I mean, that's the way I understand work to work. So, is there something that I'm missing?
No, one of the things that we're going to do as a school district, obviously, and that's the principal's charge, is just to create a culture, a healthy culture within the buildings. But I do understand what you're saying. You know, their responsibility is to come to work. Right. The other aspect of that is, that's a slippery slope, is that we do provide people with sick days, and we do provide people with vacation days.
No,
So
I'm not disputing that. I'm not trying to say what benefits exist should be changed in any way. I mean, I understand how that break. I mean, I can read the graph here, but I mean, as far as that, we have to do added incentive. I mean, it would be that, you know, okay, if you exhaust your leave, I understand different things that may take that, but I mean, to say, well, we really don't know if you're really committed to being here, so we're going to give you a free lunch to restaurant A, B, or C. I won't advertise for anybody, but I mean, that just, in my mind, just seems to be stretching it that much more. If we're having to reach that hard to get people to come to work, then I think that, I mean, in my mind, there's,
but understand,
there's much more.
This is still a large corporation, unlike any other corporations that have the same incentives. I mean, we're dealing with humans,
right.
And so you have to shape behavior, and so because of the difference between us and other corporations is our main assets are our teachers, and so we need them there in order to. And so it would behoove us that if we do have a problem, that we figure out some way to shape that culture of regularly attending, those kind of things to really, to help support, first of all, to support and reward those who are doing the right thing. It's just like being caught in the act of kids. And then a way to how do we really bolster and boost up the importance of teachers attending. The research is clear also is that there's a correlation between teacher attendance and students attendance. And so we're really trying to figure out a way to, and we don't, there's no magic bullet. No. It's not uncommon for school districts or other organizations to reward their staff for doing the right thing. And so our job is to figure out where are the gaps that we're having in human behavior and how do we shape that human behavior, and the research is clear is through reward systems.
Well, and that may have been my misinterpretation of what was being presented, because I understand rewarding someone, but what I don't grasp at all is incentivizing people to come do something that they should be doing anyway.
Right.
And, I mean, so as far as rewarding those who are doing well or getting others to step up and do better, I'm all on board with.
Right.
It's just that if we're having to constantly keep getting more incentives out there, I mean, that at some point, I mean, I guess my next question, have we asked the question, I mean, you give a reason as to why a person's not here, but have we asked the question to the individuals, is that really, I mean, obviously, yes.
Legally, we cannot.
But are we asking the overall question, what is that, are you happy? I mean, if you're not going to be happy, well, let us know, what can we do better if we can't find that common ground? And I'm not trying to orchestrate that. That's for you and everyone else to figure out. But in looking at the data you're presenting to me, that's the question I'd like to know the answer to.
Yeah, I think that issue would be addressed in that survey, the school climate survey. So we should look forward to getting that data.
Or the data meetings with the
Right,
individual
and
principal,
understanding
because
that.
that's a building issue. If we're having, that's the whole point of this is for you guys to say, hey, for information-wise, we have some buildings that have higher teacher or higher chronic teacher absences than others. What are you guys doing about it?
Right.
And so that puts the onus of us, a goal to really concentrate on that. And then we go back to our data meetings, to our principals, and saying, hey, this is the pattern that we're seeing. What are you doing about it?
Right.
And so this is their job to really build that culture. Sorry, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones.
I think that if we're rewarding the teachers for doing good, those are the ones that are going to be there anyway. If they're not doing good, then they're probably not going to want to come to school anyway. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you for that report. And, again, this is one of the reasons why this is under goal number 1. We need to understand about teacher attendance and what strategies we have in place to drive teacher attendance. And the survey will help us to identify some of the reasons why teachers may not be coming as often as they could.
Yeah. It's a sensitive subject.
All right.
Because we can't address, first of all, you can't punish a teacher for not coming because they're using their required days that within our policy. The other thing is we can't just keep asking them, hey, why are you not here? Those kind of things. So what we have to do is build a culture, like you said, to make sure that they're happy, that they're supported.
Right.
Like she said, one of the ways that we're doing that is through our surveys and those kind of things, to make it anonymous, to make people be honest about that culture, so we know intentionally what the focus and shape.
So the next item we have is a CMSD safety report, which I know we've all had the opportunity to review. Board, do you have a need to be able to see that information again tonight? Yes.
I don't have a need to see the information again, but I do want to recognize that some of the training that's coming forth addresses some of the very accident-related issues that are happening, and I'm glad to see that.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns about the CMSD safety report? Because it really is just for information only. The item that I do want us to look at very quickly is that of student discipline report.
Mm-hmm. And we had some coding issues. Ms. Beth, if you can clear that information up as well.
Right, with this year for CMS, there was some things going on with that. But if you look at our district-wide discipline comparison, in just about every area, we have lower numbers this year than we did last year.
Right.
And in some areas, it may have been just a little bit more, but in the number of referrals has come down tremendously.
I think the one area, Dr. Hickman, that just kind of stands out is that of tardies. We do have tardies are higher this year than they were last year
Right.
across the district. And then the other one would be bus incidents. So those are the two areas that just jump out at me immediately, saying that there needs to be something done about those areas. Board, do you have anything that you'd like to chime in on?
Those were the two that jumped out at me as well, and I just wondered if Dr. Hickman could comment and tell us what's being done to improve in those areas.
There was a obvious issue with the tardies at the high school, and really what happened was that it was just enforced. So because it was enforced, starting with Ms. Savage, then therefore the tardies jumped up. And then we're right now working on remediating. If you really look at our hallways in the high school now, we're not having those issues. And then the bus incidences, I don't know if I don't know how I can express. If you worked in a school district, and if you just, when I was assistant principal, I just randomly looked at bus tapes, and it is depressing. Some of your best students, the things that they do on the bus, it's depressing. And so one of the things that we're really looking at is, first of all, we really start to hold people accountable for identifying those bus issues and not let them go, because that just kind of festers up, and it really gets into situations where kids feel unsafe on the bus, and that's what we don't want. And so, again, we really started paying attention, identifying behaviors, and targeting them more, so they're being recorded, they're being documented, so we know exactly what we need to intervene with. The other is dealing with training with our bus drivers and see how we can better support our bus company and bus drivers to almost like what Mr. Spears talked about with the adults, is to make it a welcoming culture. Are you greeting students when they come on the bus? Already, do you know your students, have a relationship with your students, that you could tell if a student comes on a bus and had problems at home or on a bus stop, and therefore that you can make some interventions, whether it's just having that youngster sit closer to you, and those kind of things is really what we're working on. Yes, ma'am.
No, I was just going to say, so we look forward to the recommendations that you'll provide to the board on how do we mitigate those issues.
Yes, ma'am.
That are popping out. The next item on the agenda is that of training opportunities. I think that's really just for information only.
Yes.
All right, board, does anybody need clarification or an update on that item? All right, if not, that takes us to the EMCC request that was given to us today. If we want to make an action on that for tonight, it does require a motion to get us started.
Well, Madam President, one thing, I think that the presentation that was brought before us is great, but I would like to table it to our next meeting just so that we can have more details because what was presented sounds really great, but I'd still like to understand a little bit better about the programs and other parts of how that will shift things around at Hunt.
And I agree with you, and that will give all of us the opportunity to review the information, allow Mr. Dunn to look at it from any legal implications that we may have. And so is that your motion? Would you like to table it until?
That's my motion, is to table it until the next regular meeting, school board meeting.
Okay, which will be the next regular school board meeting. Would that suffice, Mr. Dunn?
Which one?
Well,
Not the school tour.
Not the school tour, but
Right.
our regular meeting, so that'd be April the 9th, something.
I'm not even sure,
Well, let's
but
see,
yeah.
6/13.
So that's your motion for that we will table this item to the next regular school board meeting. Okay, it has been motioned by Mr. Spears and second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. If there is no more discussion, all in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, let the record show that it is unanimous.
May I ask for some direction?
Yes, sir.
Would you like for me to talk with EMCC and come back with a proposed lease for this meeting? Is that the idea?
I think, so if we have the lease board, we can at least,
Have the
review
information.
the terms and conditions of the lease And Dr. Hickman, if we could have something written that tells, the purpose of the program and what the benefits of the program is supposed to be, I think that gives us information to get started with.
Well, and just
Thank you.
also the scope, I mean, obviously, they probably say from hour to hour, I mean, while our students are there, but also are there after-hours type of classes administered. And I guess one other question I would want to know more about is that, obviously, they're working to use the lower section because of ADA compliance, but how does that affect, or would it be even a chance that we would have a student or someone else that would still need to utilize those same facilities that, if everything is shifted upstairs, may not be able to do? So are there things that we may, as a district, need to do to make
consider.
it available to current,
To consider, okay?
And we already talked about that, and we have the 5 classrooms that are downstairs, 5 classrooms that are upstairs. So if we had a student that had ADA issues, that we will have those programs offered at the lower campus.
Okay.
So if we can get the scope of work
Right.
and some details about the program, then I think that gives us good information to get started, to contemplate. All right, the next item on our agenda is that of consent agenda items. Board, we have had the opportunity to review all of the policy recommendations that we've received. These recommendations are either because of legislative updates or due to policies that are recommended by MSBA. So if there aren't any questions, this will require an action to approve the consent agenda items. It has been motioned by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spears. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of consideration to approve student transfer. Board, we've had this information to review. This will require an action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second?
Madam President, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
But it was my understanding that everything under C 1, 2, and 3 is
It
part of
is.
the consent, so that we just approved all of it.
You're exactly right, because that's number 2,
Okay.
and I flipped my page. I'm on a new page.
Okay.
Thank you. That brings us now to the Office of Personnel.
Sorry, that's 1, 2, and 3 then?
It's 1, 2, and 3. Under the Office of Personnel Board, we do have a personnel agenda that we've received in advance of this meeting to consider. At this time, it will require an action for us to approve the recommendations. Is there a motion?
For the sake of discussion, I'll motion it.
Okay, it has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fisher. Discussion.
Yes. One thing, just as we have our policies available on the agenda,
Yes.
while we may approve recommendations or disapprove, I would like to see moving forward the salary scales that we as a board are bound to approve each year attached to the specific positions being presented, just because, in reviewing through it, I was able to go through resources, through Board Book, and find some information, but it would be a lot better and a lot easier, I guess you'd say, to evaluate what's being presented if we had those same salary scales attached to what's being put out there, so that we can obviously make certain that what's being requested is in line with what this board has approved for positions.
I'm sitting here thinking about that because I know it's on Board Book, and I know that we can go out to Board Book and just pull it. So, Board, is there any discussion? I mean,
Well, I think Mr. Spears has a valid point. All it would take is just for the position and the salary scale to be linked, so that when we click on it, it just takes us to the salary scale.
does that help you? So you don't really need it in hard copy form?
No, I'm talking
Okay.
about through here, but just to be able to see
To quickly see it.
the salary scale, yes.
Okay, so we won't have to go out into Board Book and pull it for ourselves. Got it. All right. And Dr. Hickman?
I'm confused. I'm really confused.
Okay.
So, because you can already get the salary schedule on Board Books, right? And
You
it was
can.
approved a long time ago.
You can.
So help me understand, if we're not doing a new salary scale, what do we need to have the link come forward? I don't understand.
I think as an FYI, it just clarifies very readily, as opposed to going out looking for the salary scale, which is, those documents, those pages are numerous. It's just a way to make it, if you want to say easier, a quick link for the board.
Do you understand what she's saying? Because I don't.
She understands.
Do you understand? So
Yeah.
so we can put a link
Yeah.
Yeah.
to it that, okay,
Yeah.
so,
Because, I mean, and to me, because I know then looking at certain things is that, you know, you'll see a number for a position, like a dollar amount, and it could be $50,000. Well, okay, is this step one of?
What step?
You know, whatever,
Okay.
or, I mean, and it's just kind of a very ambiguous way of doing it. And all
Right.
I'm asking is for clarification, because I'm not necessarily saying that I'm against what may be being presented. It's just that if I can't find information, I don't know, you might decide, and I'm not saying you are, but you might decide, hey, this person needs $5,000 more dollars. Well,
I respect
unless
that.
I see the salary scale that was approved by the board, I'm wrong.
I respect it, I just didn't understand, and as long as the person who's gonna have to do it understands.
So if we
Follow
have,
what I was
for
asking
for
for.
each of the positions
Thank you.
that we have, if we note what the salary, what step they're in for that particular salary scale, then we should readily be able to look it up, confirm that it's correct, and move forward.
Because
Oh,
it could
you
be a
wanna know what
typo.
step it's in, or you wanna know, okay,
No,
now,
I mean, it could be a typo. I mean, you might have it down for one thing, and because it's put on, and that's happened before. And if we approve it, somebody's going to get paid $20,000 more than what they're supposed
Right.
to be by their step. As board action, we've approved that versus being able to catch it.
Right. Well, you know what the step is, because the step is based on the dollar amount that you put
But you
on the
guys don't.
personnel.
is that what you're saying?
Right.
That you guys want the step?
Because we may not readily know that it's
That's a-
at step 3 of a 3-step pay scale.
I understand that.
All right.
And just to be clear, this is something that we'd asked of the previous
Yes.
superintendent. We just wanted to be very clear on what we were approving or not approving.
Okay, so we do have a motion by Mr. Spears, a second by Mrs. Fisher. If there's no more discussion, all in favor of approving the recommended personnel agenda items, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous.
I understand what they're saying.
The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Instruction. We have a consideration to approve the single-source purchase of the Naviance product. Board, we've had an opportunity to review this. Are there any unresolved issues with this item? If not, it will require an action. Is there a motion?
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion.
Has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? I'll second. It has been motioned by Mr. Spears and seconded by Mrs. Verdell. Discussion.
Okay. When you see single source, I mean, that's a red flag for me because that tells me this is the only person in the entire world that can do something.
They can make this product.
That can make this product that
product.
we need.
Right.
And that means that they have a captive, a way of pricing it as well. And so I've read through the terms and agreement, I've read through all the different things. I understand what this represents. And I would just like to understand a little bit better as to why this particular entity or program is that much better than any other single source provider out in the world.
Okay, so Dr. Hickman, can you give us a succinct understanding as to why this is
Succinct.
a single source recommendation?
It's a sole source or single source because they're the only one that has that product, actually. And it has more than one product. So not only will it help our kids graduate and funnel our kids towards our pathway program that aligns with our pathway program, they also embedded in there have a career interest survey that fits in with our sixth grade, that when our sixth graders come in, that they actually learn their strengths and weaknesses, and it's actually a curriculum. It's a course that they go through digitally that fits well with our 2-to-1 initiatives with our technology, that kids can do it at school or at home. That's another component of a career aspiration, a program that's not there. The other aspect of it is that they will have our personal graduation plan. So even though we're one of the few districts that are going to have PGPs, meaning that within our pathways, once a kid chooses endorsement, they know where they're going to, it will drop down electronically, tell them what classes they need to take to be successful. That is unique. I mean, this is not just a, this is when you need to register for the ACT, this is when you need to, and so it takes them through all kind of career courses. It also has vignettes and videos on there, which is where 2 individuals went around and they interviewed hundreds of thousands of professionals and asked them, what did you do in high school? What was the difference to you? And blah, blah, blah. And so kids can get on there, they can look at their career path, and they can see live people in those various different fields around the country, in every state, and have that conversation. The other aspect of it that makes it unique that no one has and that they don't have, but they will have next year. No one actually, you know how I said the pathways are going to go from kindergarten all the way through high school? Everyone's, if they have career pathways, it starts at high school. People are now starting to do them at middle school. No one does it at elementary. This is the first year that they're going to do it at elementary, and they're going to allow us to pilot the program. But the reason is because the pathways that we have developed, which they haven't seen, even at Houston, when we look at the pathways, it starts at high school. And so no one has the pathways going from elementary to high school, because that's where the research says it. The conversation needs to start at elementary school, where kids are learning about university, kids are learning about career interests and those kind of things. We're the first to pilot that program, which automatically fits in with our pathways of that, what we talked about, how we're going to, at each grade level, be real intentional and specific about what we teach our kids and how to gear them towards those career paths that fit within our magnets. No one does it. No one. I mean, I can name similar programs that have, graduation path and those kind of things, but not how Hobson and Naviance does. The program has been around, and I have to look that up. It's not a new program. There are new aspects of the program that differentiates it from everywhere else, but it's not a new program per se.
Board, are there any other questions for Dr. Hickman about Naviance? Mr. Johnson.
And the question I want to have, Mr. Dunn, I assume that you or Mr. Hemphill have had a chance to review all the terms and conditions, and you're comfortable in recommending our approval of this?
Yes, sir, we did, and we worked with Dr. Hickman and his staff and worked through it, and what you see is something that's legal, and you're able to accept it.
All right.
One question.
What, I just want a clarification on what the term identifies when it says 1 or 12. Is that months or year or?
I'm sorry?
On the terms for the product of service, on the contract, well, it's not the contract, but on this, it describes terms. For instance, the Family Connection engagement package is 1 term, whereas the Naviance course planner for the district is 12. So I just want to know what the 1 or the 12 represents.
Oh, because the packets are one-time packets, where this is a 12, this is month.
Okay.
The packets they have for the parents are.
So it
one-time
represents,
thing.
that represents
The other one
month.
is a license for, year-round license.
All right, if there's no more discussion, Board, we have a motion by Mr. Spears, a second by Verdell. All in favor of the motion to consider the Naviance purchase, please signify by raising your right hand. All right, let the record show that Mr. Lotzenheiser, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Verdell, Mr. Jones is in favor. All opposed, please signify by raising your right hand. Let the record show that Mr. Spears is in opposition. The motion does carry, and the product should be purchased. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Student of Support Services. Board, we do have a consideration to approve one of the options for the new academic calendar because of bad weather. And Dr. Hickman, how many options were there that you were recommending? While I get to it. Two? 2 options?
3, I think.
It would have been
3? Dr. Hickman, do we know if?
Is it 2?
It's 2.
You want?
That's correct. There are 2 options.
Right.
One is the current calendar, and then we have option 1 and option 2.
That's right.
Okay.
We gave you a copy of the current academic calendar as well.
Do we know if MDE will be coming back?
We are still waiting for MDE to let us know if we're going to get a waiver for the days. So we're anticipating having to go ahead and make up the days for February. That's why we presented only days for February, and we didn't include the days for March on these options.
Okay, and so Mrs. Lenore, can you briefly tell us what the difference is between the 2 options?
Sure. Option 1, basically what we decided is that Good Friday is going to have to be the makeup day for the day missed in February. We have that day in there. And option 1 is the 60% day that we had built into the original calendar. Option 1 gives us the 60% on the last student day, and option 2 gives us the 60% day on Good Friday. And we anticipated that because Good Friday was already an established holiday, that providing the 60% day there might help families that were going to travel during that holiday weekend.
And so the 60% on Good Friday is option number?
That's option number 2.
Option number 2.
Correct.
Okay, Board, so we have both of the options in front of us. It will require an action. Is there a motion for one of the options or the other?
I have one quick question.
Mr. Spears?
As you were alluding to, in March, because there was a declared state of an emergency, that may give us waiver for that particular day?
Correct. We're still waiting for that.
Is that what you're waiting to find out?
That's correct.
Okay.
We're waiting for MDE for that waiver,
Okay.
if they provide us with that.
All right, so Board, what's your pleasure? We have option 1 and option 2. Option 2 being the one with 60% on Good Friday. Is there a motion to approve?
Option 2, I mean, it's the 60%, so I mean, I would make a motion that option 2 be the one utilized. I'm the one that'll take the blame for it, so.
We got you down for that. Okay, is there a second for option number 2?
Okay. Yes.
I'll second that. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones seconded that. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is, all in favor is, let the record show, Mr. Lotzenheiser is in favor, Verdell is in favor, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Spears. All opposed, please signify by raising your right hand. Let the record show that Mrs. Fisher is in opposition. All right, so we will go with option number 2 for the revised calendar. The next item on our agenda is that of the consideration to approve the E-rate Wi-Fi bid number 632. Board, we have had the opportunity to review this bid. This will require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the review of the summary of athletic projects that are being proposed. Board, I know we do have items number E, F, and G, which is really the details of the summary that is presented in item number D. So at this time, if you would refer to item number D, and what I'd like to be able to do is, once we're looking at the summary, the roll-up of all of the proposed projects, if there are questions about any particular section, then if we could refer to either item E, F, and G for clarification. Will that work for everybody? Okay? Yeah. So we'll see. The first item on the summary report for athletic projects, we have project number 1, which is the football field and track improvements. What we need to do tonight, Board, is to make a determination which of the 3 options presented to us here we want to approve so that we can start to move forward with these projects. We have option A, we have option B, and we have option C under project number 1. This will require an action. Is there a motion? Yes,
Madam
Mr.
President,
Spears.
just as I've expressed many times, you know, we started this whole evaluation process based off of a needs assessment as to where the money should go and how it should be allocated.
Right.
And while I understand there's a, you know, I don't call it a trust fund, but a large share of money sitting out there for these various projects, it has become abundantly clear after additional information has continued to flow to this board that preliminary estimations or guesstimations or misses were part of what we have before us to evaluate. And so I would ask that as we go, while I understand we want to go right on to the football side of things, and while I know that people say that I'm against athletic facilities in the community, that's okay because that's not the truth. I would say we start with G and talk about the weight room, the hitting facility, and the softball, because those are the first 3 that were identified, and I've got a copy of the first information brought to us that was $265,000 for those three things, and now we're looking at close to $1 million.
But if you would allow me, Mr. Spears, to go in the order that the summary is provided to us, and that way we can make sure that we stay in order. But, you know, we will hear any issues or concerns once we reach each of those items.
So if we run out of money before we get there, do we just not do it, or we allocate more money?
Well, if we run out of money before we get there, then we'll address that at that point. So if we could just go to project number 1,
Okay.
we have 3 options, option A, B, or C.
Right.
Board, it will require an action that we make a determination on one of those 3 options for project number 1.
Then I make a motion that we accept option C.
Okay, it has been motioned by Mr. Spears for option C.
I will add my second to
Has
option
been
C.
seconded by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any,
I'd like to put forth the substitute motion to go with option A, which is more comprehensive.
okay, so we have a substitute motion made by Mrs. Fisher for option number A. Is there a second? So she made the substitute
Substitute
motion.
motion.
So her substitute motion now overrides the original motion for option number A. Is there a second for Mrs. Fisher's motion? I'll second for the sake of discussion.
I'll make a substitute to the substitute motion
I don't
for
think
option
that,
B.
I don't know that we can take more than one substitute motion at a time, Mr. Spears. Okay, thank you. So we do have Mrs. Fisher's motion. I made the second. Discussion. Option number A is the new track. New track will be
Grass
surfaced, the grass field adjustments, and the installation of the drainage system. What questions do we have, Board?
Okay. The question that I have, is the engineer here, Mr. Stafford, has presented. May we bring him up just to ask some questions?
Mr. Stafford?
Or both, either.
So we have both our
Yeah, both
representative
can
from
come on up.
Morrow, from the architectural standpoint, and then we have our representative from Neil Schaefer from a civil engineering standpoint.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Welcome.
Good evening.
I'll do the best I can.
All right.
All right, my question is obviously related more toward what has been discussed, because we have A, B, and C. And there was discussion, my understanding, just from talk about if you just fix the drainage. Am I missing that point? I mean, could you just fix the drainage without having to address raising the field or not raising the field? Or is that just going to be part of fixing the drainage?
It's two-part.
Okay.
By raising the field, obviously, it's going to fix the flooding issue you have. Solely alone by fixing the drainage, leaving it at its current elevation, it will go underwater again.
Okay.
By raising the field and fixing the drainage, it reduces that possibility greatly. So option C, it'll go underwater again. Basically, it does make improvements. Some of the things that we see today, water flowing across the track as it is,
Right.
It'll stop that from happening. And then you resurface it and you start over again and just hope it doesn't go underwater as often as it has been or deteriorate as fast. Option A, however, raises the field, which gets it, so to speak, up and out of the water. It'll reduce that factor. It'll extend the life of your track. That's the main difference between the two. And of course,
And
y'all
so-
see the cost difference.
Mr. Stafford, and this is kind of going back in time, when that stadium was first built, there was not proper drainage installed so that we could have prevented this from happening years ago when the stadium was built.
There's a combination of things, elevation and bad drainage, inadequate drainage.
So
Done years
if-
ago, that's been
Right.
settled, correct.
So if we address that with this item number A, option A, then we're alleviating an issue that we've probably could have done a better job with almost 20 years ago.
Option A alleviates the drainage issue better than option C.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
And one other question that I have is, with respect to alleviating the current drainage, what type of backflow might be created for existing structures such as the field house, other things that were brought to our attention that might create a damming situation And I mean that as pooling water, not that.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Spears.
Just to clarify
Thank you.
I think I may have been the one that brought it up too at one time as being a
Right.
damming situation. We'll actually have to put in trench drains in those areas to ensure water gets out. That's actually luckily an area that water's going to split. One's going to go down one side of the field, the other will actually go on the other side. There's improvements on both sides that'll be happening. So we're going to make sure water gets away from the building. That was my first initial concern about raising the field, was creating that dam for it. So we don't want to, fix one issue and cause another.
Right.
Okay, Board, what other questions do we have for either of the representatives tonight?
So if we went with C, how long would we be looking at the problem again? You know?
Right now, y'all see it probably 2 or 3 times a year from what I understand. Obviously, it depends on the weather. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's when the larger ditch that is downstream backs up, causes a lot of issues, but also there are on-site issues. There's a combination of the two. By doing just option C alone, every good heavy rain, you're still going to see it.
Right.
But the smaller rain, and the example I've used, let's just say on an average of 10 times it floods, by doing just option C, you'll probably reduce it down to about 5 times, 5 out of 10 as opposed to 10 out of 10. Whereas doing option A will basically eliminate it altogether.
Okay. So option C basically puts a Band-Aid on it, and
Correct.
option A fixes it.
That's correct. It's a dual issue. It's an elevation issue and an on-site drainage issue.
Okay, Board, do we have any other questions for the representatives tonight? All right, so we do have a motion made by Mrs. Fisher. I made the second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor of option number A for the football field and track improvements, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Please let the record show that it is unanimous. Thank you. You may want to stay put. Yeah, you may want to stay put. All right. The next item is project number 2, which is the soccer field addition. Board, we have 2 options, option A and option B. Is there a motion to approve one option or the other?
Could y'all please give us an idea of what this stuff is going to cost as you approve this stuff?
So for option A, Board, the option A is for the soccer field. The soccer field will actually become where the existing football practice field is currently right now. And that cost would be $260,150, which is option number A. Option number B, the recommendation is that the soccer field will become where the band currently practices at. The cost of that recommendation is $822,800 even. So, Board, we have options A and B, and it does require an action. Is there a motion to approve one or the other?
Madam President, I'd like to hear from the administration if they have a recommendation in this regard.
Dr. Hickman, do you have a recommendation? You have A, here, you have B, here.
My recommendation was the soccer field on the football practice field.
Okay, so please let the record note that that is option number A, which is the $260,150 option. All right, so is there a motion for either option A or option B?
So moved.
All right, it has been motioned by
option
Mr.
A.
Spears for option A,
And I will second that.
second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion? All in favor of option A, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Please let the record show that Mr. Lotzenheiser, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Verdell, and Mr. Spears is in agreement. Is there any opposition?
Well, I don't know enough about it to
Okay, so
sustain.
the next option is, are there any abstentions?
Sustain.
Okay, all right, so it does pass for option number A. Let the record show that Mr. Spears, Fisher, Verdell, and Lotzenheiser are in favor, and Mr. Jones has abstained. All right. The next item is project number 3, the football weight room expansion. Board, we only have one recommendation for this project. The total cost is at $131,268. We do understand that this will increase the square footage in our existing weight room, and that there may be some upgrades of equipment in that facility. Is that correct?
Yes, best,
Okay.
all the information that I've seen, yes.
Okay, all right. So this does require an action. Is there a motion?
I mean, I'll make the motion for the sake of discussion.
All right, it has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? I'll make the second. Discussion.
Okay, I mean, I won't continue to harp on how we were told $50,000 and now it's $131,000. But can you give us a little bit, or rehash some of the details as to the difference in cost? I mean, was it just that, I guess it's going to be this, and that's why we came up with that number? Or is it that, okay, now we actually have a little bit better grasp as to the magnitude of what needs to happen there, and so now we can see that from, whether it be geotechnical or whatever, now this is the cost that goes along with it.
And let me interject with the previous athletic director. One of the things that he did was as a district, we were going to act as our own contractor, which is something totally different from when you want to make sure that we bid it out. Then there's other processes that we have to put in effect. And then the second aspect that he's going to talk about, you're correct, is that once we have more of a professional, then there were other issues such as sprinklers and such as the length and those kind of things that if you can please address.
Thank you. Let me start off by saying that I was not involved early on when the estimate was originally provided. We recently bid a new project for the city of Louisville. It's a 300,000 square foot metal building. Same thing that the expansion will be, a metal building. We were estimating $8 million. It came in at 7.5. But even at that number, using those square footage for this particular project, it doesn't come anywhere close to 50. So we're based on something that just recently bid, a much larger building. So the economy of scale should be a lot better. So using those numbers and using some of the numbers for other stuff, concrete foundation, mechanical system, upgrade to the electrical system, that kind of information, I don't know if that was provided early on or not, or assumed early on or not. It is anticipated in this case. Other stuff that is anticipated on this same price is markups by the general contractor, insurance, builder's risk, bonds, other items required by state law when the public is building a building. Right. So that's one of the reasons why it's a big difference between $50,000 and $106,000. Those are more, I like to think those are better numbers, more accurate in regards to construction. You do have two local metal building companies here, very successful companies that will probably do the project and be a better price than something in Louisville.
Well, and I guess that would be my question, because I know it being involved with other things is, for example, doing a design build, and I know they have a lot of times, whether it be ACI or Batesville or somewhere else, that, for example, they have, engineers already on site, so they're going to tell you this, 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 and this, and that may save some of the cost, and then again, it may not, depending on what pathway you choose. And I don't know if something along those lines is keeping us in the realm of being our own, construction manager, but how, as far as the costs go, when you start communicating and bidding it out and different things, do those factors play a role into maybe the cost that one of your two entities cost the district versus knowing that those services are already going to be taken care of by that particular manufacturer of that metal building? For example, the hitting facility or the weight room or something, that they're going to say, okay, instead of just having to put the stamp on it to say this has been approved, they've already gone through the engineering part of it, and they're going to say where the beams need to be, and they're going to say all these other things.
In regards to metal building, you're correct. The manufacturer will do the engineering based on the information we give them.
Okay.
The city of Columbus is under 2006 International Building Code,
right.
So we will tell them what the requirements are for that particular code, for this particular building, for this particular use, and then they'll base their design on that.
Okay. So going to the hitting facility itself, not hitting facility, I'm sorry, the weight room expansion, excuse me. how much more square footage is it going to add to the current site?
It's 1,320.
Okay. And so that wouldn't put it to where it would have to be sprinkled or anything?
Probably not. I have not looked at the floor
Because
plans.
that's like 12,000 square feet, if I remember correctly.
That's how big it is right now. So the answer would be no. Based on the 2006 International Building Code, no, you will not have to sprinkle that building. However, under the 2012, 2009, 2012, and 2015, the building will be required to be sprinkled if it's over 12,000 square feet. If we're, and I mentioned this before, depending on when we actually go into construction, if the city adopts a new code, then we will have to sprinkle the building at that time.
Okay. And just so that I understand better, because if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the weight room is part of the existing field house. Wrong or right?
Yes.
Right, it is.
It's an
Okay, and so
extension.
all of that square footage would be built onto just, not just the weight room itself that's being expanded, it's the entire
It's the
facility?
entire facility, that's correct.
Okay. Do we know, I mean, maybe I overlooked it in my notes and things, how large the overall total facility is?
My understanding is, even with the addition, we're under 20 right now,
Under 20,000 square feet?
under 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
So under the current code and under the current design, we will not necessarily have to sprinkle the building.
Okay.
All right, Board, what other questions do we have? So we have the motion made by Mr. Spears, seconded by Verdell. If there's no more discussion, yes, Mr. Spears?
Okay. So we talked about the building side of it, but the weight room expansion, does that include extra machines or other types of needed supplies for the weight? I know we're talking about the building part of it,
Right,
and I
we're
just want
talking
to
about
understand
the
as to what
building.
motion's going forward. Does that include any other weights or,
So your motion right
Years or
now,
whatever?
your motion is for the physical expansion of the
right, no, I
building
understand, I
itself.
understand that. I wanted to clarify that that is all that we're talking
Right,
about.
that's correct. That is all that there
Okay.
is.
All right.
All right, so we have the motion and the second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor of approving Project 3, which is the football weight room expansion, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item is project number 4, the baseball hitting facility. The total estimated cost of this project is $376,350.
Madam President, I have one quick request. Because
Yes.
my calculator doesn't work very well this late in the evening. Have we been keeping up with the totals of where we stand on what's being put into the press box already and what's been spent on the scoreboard to know if we continue to evaluate options 4 and option 5, if we're going to be under the $2 million threshold that was set aside, or are we going to be over that number?
Well, at this point, we do have all the items that are included on this summary page. Now, once we know which items we have, which is the $1,089,000, the $260,150, I did my own personal calculations based on when I reviewed this, what I felt that I would vote for tonight. And in doing that, my total came out to be, and you have to check my math at some point, if we were to approve the items that I am in favor for on the summary of the athletic projects, that would take us $121,468,000 over, and that's just with these. Now, if we go back and consider the items that were on our original proposal, and the items that I think will still be standing, after we've done these, the way that I did the math, I saw that that was an additional $165,000. So the total would be, based on my calculation, $286,468, which would be above the $2 million that we currently have allocated for these projects,
Yeah, I'm going to take this
which is
point-
also
Yeah.
right at 14% increase.
Well, and I'm going to take this point of privilege because I said I don't know how you're getting those numbers, but I told you that the first night.
We got you. We got you.
So
We understand.
I mean, I'm not trying to say
understand your-
look at me, but I knew based on what was being presented and what we're looking at that that's where we were going to come out
Well,
over the number, and I'm not trying to create some contest or slow down the
Right.
process.
Right.
But all I ask is, whether it be putting a roof on a facility or books or whatever, get the numbers right on the front time. I mean, don't come back and say we're going to be 14 or 15% over, because I guarantee you, 15% on $40 million, that's a lot of
Yeah,
money.
That is, but I do want to point out, Mr.
If we do that in
Spears.
every area on a $40 million budget,
Yes.
we might as well go to the House.
But I do want to point out, Mr. Spears, that the drastic increase in these projects,
It's because the numbers were wrong.
well, because the numbers are wrong, and we have additional professional services that we are now incorporating in these projects,
That we should have had from the beginning.
which is, you're absolutely right, which we should have had from the beginning. And based on the recommendations that this board received at that time, we did not have that information. So you're absolutely correct. But what I do know, Mr. Spears, is with the information that they have shared with us and with the scope of work that they're going to provide if we move forward, then now we have some assurances that we have backing from both of them that the projects that we put in place are going to be top rate and top quality projects, where before we didn't have those
Well,
assurances.
I have no doubt. All I'm just asking is that all I'm just asking is we move forward, that we be a little bit more deliberate in our evaluation of what is being presented.
Absolutely, and I agree with you.
Thank you.
So we are at the item for the baseball hitting facility. And Board, this will require an action. Is there a motion? It has been motioned by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the base...
Madam, I just have one question.
Mr. Spears.
Because the action that we've taken to allot, this is actually for our attorney, Mr. Dunn, for us allotting so much money to be moved aside for these particular projects, will the board, if it decides to make a recommendation to accept certain things going forward, and we do foresee exceeding that amount, do we also need to go forward with a consideration of appropriating
Yes.
more money to cover that tonight? Or are we just going to say, we know we're in the hole and we'll figure it out later?
You're going to have to spend the money from somewhere. Now, you can tonight decide where that money's coming from, and I think that would be something you would look to the superintendent for a recommendation.
Right. So once we're done with this portion,
Okay.
then, Mr. Spears, to your point, we'll make sure to come back, because it is going to put us over the original $2 million. We'll come back because we will have to make that determination and approve that before the funds can be expended. All right, so we have the motion by Mr. Lotzenheiser, the second by Mr. Jones. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving the baseball hitting facility, signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the softball concession and locker room build. And the estimated cost for that project is $264,700. Board, this will require an action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Discussion. If there is no discussion, all in favor of approving project number 5, which is a softball concession and locker room build, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous.
Madam President, I have just one other question. Is while construction is building things, for example, where the softball field is, and it may speak to either of you as to who wants to answer, but there's also the deconstruction part of different things where you basically are going to tear down the metal building that is on blocks out there by the softball field. That is not covered in this amount here, correct? Or is it part of site planning, so we know this has got to go?
It is included in the estimate.
Okay, all right.
The demolition of the slab for the existing batting cages, demolition of the building, the concrete building with the metal building on top of it, it's also estimated
As
here.
straightforward as that is, I'm still going to ask. So
The one thing that is not included in this estimate, and I'm not certified to say this officially, but it will be asbestos removal, which I don't think will be in those buildings.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you both. Thank you for the
Thank you.
information. Thank you for answering all of our questions over the last few months. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, and we look forward to working with you. Board, because we now have made these approvals, we will need to make sure that we pull the funds to cover the costs that we have obligated ourselves to here tonight. So, to be formal about it, I would like to amend the agenda so that we put, and Mr. Dunn, help me with the wording of this, because I know it's not consideration, it is consideration, to move monies. Dr. Hickman, where would you recommend to the board that the funds for these expenditures, the balance that we have outstanding, come from?
In talking to Tammy McGarr.
Microphone, please.
In talking to Tammy McGarr, our business manager, what she recommended, and I also recommend, is that in our fund balance that we maintain a 15% revenue fund balance.
Okay.
And so therefore, if we do, we still have $519,926 of available monies to spend.
So for the overage that we would incur, and if my math is correct, the $286,468 would come out of the fund balance, which, Mr. Spears, and I know that you always have this as an issue, would put us at 15%, which is more than twice.
We will still be, we will be over 15%.
Well,
still.
right, I mean, we'd be about 16, if that's the case.
So we'll be at 16%, which is more than twice
I'm just
the amount that's
I
recommended by
You think my
the state.
calculator runs that fast? Come
Yeah.
on now.
Okay.
Okay. No, but.
So, and my point in saying that is that our fund balance is still very healthy, that we can have more, over twice, what is recommended for us to hold, and that we still are able to complete these athletic projects and do them to the very highest level of quality and safety and professionalism. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. Mrs. Fisher.
Yes, would Dr. Hickman please repeat that figure again?
Yes. If we were to keep our fund balance at 15%, that means that we will have available to spend $519,926.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Dunn, help me with the way that this needs to be worded, so that we can try to get a motion and get this approved.
I would say that if a trustee would move to use the amount necessary to fund the construction projects from the fund balance, that will do the job.
Okay.
Now, we don't know the exact dollar
exact-
amount that is, but we know that it's well under 519,000.
Yes, it is.
It's,
All right, Board, do we have any issues with that wording? Mr. Spears, you have something you want to say? Go ahead, Mr. Spears.
I'll just say it to myself.
Okay, all
So-
right. All right, Ms. Fisher.
I do have one concern with that wording. I would like for it to be a little bit more specific. I think Mr. Dunn had said that it's well under the 500,000, but I would like to say that it will keep us at the 15%, if that brings us any nearer.
you could add, not to exceed
Yes.
$519,926.
Well,
No.
I just, we're rough calculations coming up with $280,000. I mean,
Yes.
why would we say not to exceed $290,000 instead of trying to put an extra $200,000 out there for?
You just can't lock in unless you know that it's $290,000 dollars.
Well, it wasn't over 300, so.
No, it wasn't.
But what I'm asking, I guess my question, Mr. Dunn, is just to make sure that, I understand that, but if we were to come back and we do see it exceeds, instead of 280,000, it's 200 or 305,000, at that point, we could still make another motion to cover those additional expenses.
Absolutely.
So, in my mind, being safe about it is just to say not to exceed $280,000.
290.
$290,000. And if we find out that it's 1,000 or two over, then at that point, make that finding.
So,
I think that's fine.
yeah, it sounds like, to me, Mr. Spears,
So I'm going to jump ahead and say I make the motion that we
Right.
move $290,000 from the fund balance to cover the extra cost of construction for the needed facility upgrades in athletics, not to exceed $290,000.
Not to,
so Mr. Spears has made the motion. Is there a second? It has been seconded by Mr. Jones. If there is no further discussion,
No, I have one other discussion.
Mr. Spears.
Is that when you take the 500 and something thousand and subtract the 290 out of it, that's only going to leave, I don't want to call it discretionary because it's really not discretionary at all, but it's only going to leave about $200,000 for any other project that comes forward before that fund balance is replenished or
to keep the
or
balance.
maintained over those levels.
Right, to keep us at
So I
the
just-
15%.
Yes, so
Got
I
you.
just want to point that out
We
now.
got you. We got you. We got
There's a
you.
lot of school ahead.
Thank you for that observation, Mr. Spears. Mr. Don.
So the motion is to move sufficient funds from fund balance not to exceed $290,000 in order to complete the projects.
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Spears has made the motion, Mr. Jones has second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on our agenda is that of the Office of Business Management Board. We have had all of the reports from Mrs. McGar. Are there any questions that you have about any of the reports provided this month? Okay, those would be the fund balance report, cash balance, budget status, combined financial statement, combining financial statement, monthly revenue budget, and the monthly expenditure report. Which brings us now to item number B, certification and summary of the reconciled bank statements. Are there any questions about that? Brings us to the report on the monthly ad valorem tax collection analysis. Are there any questions on that?
While I know we asked for less, I did notice that there was about a $600,000 swing to the upside in collections. So it was nice to go from negative to
Right, to a positive.
in collections year over year. So
All right, thank you for that. The budget update, Ms. McGar has provided that information for us, which is just for information only. The next item on our agenda is item number E, the resolution for amending the trust agreement for the limited tax note series 2009 QZAB bond information. And I do know that it was requested to have the original Exhibit A so that we can compare it to the recommended changes, the revised Exhibit A, which is what the resolution is addressing. Did everybody have a chance to review that? Mr. Spears?
yes and no.
Okay.
If I see Ms. McGar's not here, who's filling in for?
Ms. Holly,
Okay.
Yes.
unless we want to defer.
Could you just kind of elaborate a little bit on what's being proposed as to the differences between what was initially agreed to and why we're asking the change to be made? Is this just kind of a course of action that we need to take based off of a certain term, or is it that, we're trying to restructure things and therefore this is what is going to help us do it?
Okay, well, I was just brought into this today. What I do understand is that Ms. McGar is trying to restructure it
Okay.
to where let me see, her exact words is, "This will allow our debt to be better structured so that tax requests that we take to the city will be more uniform year to year."
Okay. All right. That's a solid enough answer for me.
Because this is a resolution, it does require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So, second.
All right, has been motioned by Mr. Lotzenheiser, seconded by Mr. Spears. If there's no discussion, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is really for information only. All of the dates that we see listed here, Board, under item number 13A, 1 through 4. So if you would just take notice of those dates and and attend any of those as you can. The next item on our agenda. Where was it? Under what? Okay, so board, we have to approve the academic calendar. Dr. Hickman is saying that we overlooked one item. Do you know where it is? Do you know where it is? B, under which section?
Right.
Which-
Yeah.
Offices of support. Okay, so under Office of Support Services, item number B, consideration to approve the CMSD 2015-2016 academic calendar for next year. Board, did everyone have an opportunity to review the calendar, the proposed calendar?
Sorry. Would you restate that item number?
It's item number 11.
11?
Roman numeral 11, B as in boy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Board, this will require an action. Is there a motion? I heard a voice.
So moved.
Okay, it has been motioned by Mr. Jones that we approve the proposed calendar for 2015-2016, second by Mrs. Fisher. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. At this time, that brings us to the portion of our agenda for closed determination. For executive session, we ask that the public please leave the room at this time. For closed determination, it does require a motion only. Mr. Lotzenheiser, are you making the motion, sir? It has been moved by Mr. Lotzenheiser. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. We're now back in regular session. The next item on the agenda is the approval of our monthly claims docket. Board, this does require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Yes, Mrs. Fisher.
When I was looking at the docket by, the claims docket by fund code, I didn't see a fund code grouping for Kelly Services specifically. It seemed to have been broken up, and I don't know if there was a reporting glitch or if I missed something.
And I'm not sure which one of the funds, I don't know if that's an 1120 item, and it may be that that's not a category in and of itself, that it's already embedded in one of the other funds. I mean, that's a question for Mrs. McGarr, really.
And I would be more than happy to wait, because I did check the figures, and they're fine.
Okay.
But it was just the grouping that I was concerned about.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Hickman. If you...
Or you want me to at least get what Ms. Looker?
If you wish.
All right. All right, thank you very much. So it has been motioned by Mr. Spears, second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. If there's no more discussion, all in favor of approving the claims docket signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. So the next item on our agenda is that of the election of new officers, which is the next to last item on our agenda for today. In accordance to our policy, I'm trying to pull it. In accordance to our policy, each year, and I did print it, where is it? We have the election of officers. And our policy reads, this is policy number BAA, and it's titled Method of Election of Board Officers. The method of election of board officers states the school board of all school districts shall organize by the election of a president and a secretary from its membership, whose duty it shall be to make reports and to perform all other duties required by law, as it is stated under State Statute 37-6-9. So at this time, Board, we do need to take up the election of a president, and there's another policy that makes reference to this as well. Policy number BBA, which says board officers. This particular policy says that the officers of the Board of Trustees shall be a president, vice president, and secretary at the first regular meeting of the board following the first Saturday of March of each calendar year that we have this election. So if we're going to go in accordance to our policy, first of all, we need to understand, Board, if we are going to have a vice president this year, we have not had one in the last 2 years, and so we need to make that determination.
Madam President, for the record, I think that in accordance with making sure that we are covered with policy,
yes,
that we should note that this meeting date was changed, which is why we're meeting after the first Saturday.
Okay.
Because this is actually, we've had 2 Saturdays pass.
Okay,
I
so
would
as
just
a
like
point of
that noted
clarification, we got that,
for the
okay.
minutes.
All right, so I made note of that on the policy BBA. All right, so Board, just as a loose discussion in terms of the vice president's position on this board, what is your pleasure?
I mean, personally, I think in policy, I mean, I know that there was a lot of disruption and infighting and a lot of other things that transpired.
Hey, Mr. Spears, use your microphone. Thank you.
It was my belief that there was a lot of infighting and a lot of other disgust or whatever that brought us to the conclusion that we didn't have an election of a vice president because of things that had transpired the way they did. But that did not change the policy as we adapt into a new year. So unless we modify the policy states what it does.
The only thing with that is that we have two policies that are somewhat in opposition or in conflict of the other, but they both reference. Actually, the first policy, BBAA, method of election of board officers, it references the state statute 37-6-9. And the other policy does not reference that. It only references another state statute, 37-6-9, president and secretary of school board quorum minutes, voting or abstaining on questions. So it does not state by state statute that we have to have a vice president position.
I'd like to ask Mr. Dunn if he would weigh in on this. When we have two policies and they are contradictory, how do we resolve the issue?
I really don't think these policies are contradictory in that one doesn't say you're only going to have president and secretary and the other says you're going to have, it just basically BBAA is tracking the Mississippi Code that requires you to have a president and secretary. I would read BBA to say that this board has made a decision at some point to also have a vice president.
Okay.
I think if you're going to follow your policy, you need all three offices.
Okay, so board, what is your pleasure?
Question.
Yes.
Are you saying that we have not followed policy in the past? Because I disagree with Mr. Spears that it was because of any in-house dissension that we did not have a vice president. I don't think that that reason was ever stated, especially for the record. So I don't know what you're saying. You're saying we have not been following policy.
I would say that I'm not talking about intentions or any of the other things. Black and white, just looking at the letters here, BBA says you're supposed to have a vice president, and you haven't. So you have to conclude that you have not followed your policy. You don't have to follow your policy, you know.
And if I'm not mistaken, at that time, prior to last year, the year before, we voted to agree that we would not, that we, would kind of override our policies. And then last year, we voted to act the same way for this year, for the term that it has now expired.
And all policies can be
Absolutely.
not followed. This board at any time can amend or decide not to follow a particular policy.
Okay, so board, what is your pleasure?
So what is the question on
The
the floor?
question is, do we want to move forward with having a vice president going into this new term for officers, or do we want to remain the way that we currently are with the secretary and a president? That is the question.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the current officers that we have, that being president and secretary.
Okay, it has been motioned by Mrs. Fisher that we continue to move with the two positions of board president and board secretary. Is there a second to her motion? I will second that for the sake of discussion. Discussion, board, what issues do we have? Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Let the record show that Mrs. Verdell and Mrs. Fisher is in agreement
Mr. Jones
and
voted.
support. Did I miss anybody?
Mr. Jones?
Okay, let the record show that Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Verdell, and Mr. Jones is in agreement. All opposed, please signify by raising your right hand. Let the record show that Mr. Lotzenheiser and Mr. Spears is in opposition.
And Madam President, then I ask that instead of us being in violation of our policy, that as you're reviewing the policy, instead of every year having to do this, if this is the pathway that the board's going to follow, then let's change the policy.
Okay, so we'll make sure, Mr. Spears, that we get that before the Policy Review Committee, and that we have that addressed. All right, thank you for that. All right, so now to our elections. And the way that it's stated, I'm going to take it in order. The first office is that of president. Is there a motion for the president for this next term?
Madam President, I
Mrs.
move that
Fisher.
we re-elect Angela Verdell as president of the board.
Okay, so we have Mrs. Fisher's motion. Is there a second to her motion?
Second.
It has been seconded by Mr. Jones. Discussion. What discussion do we have? If there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that it is unanimous. The next item on our agenda is that of secretary. This does require an action.
Madam
Is there a
President,
motion?
I make a motion that Mr. Glenn Lotzenheiser be elected as considered for the secretary position.
Okay, it has been motioned for Mr. Lotzenheiser to be the secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been seconded by Mrs. Fisher. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. All right. So at this time, board, and Mr. Lotzenheiser, congratulations, and thank you, board. I look forward to working with everybody again going forward this year. The next item on our agenda is that of adjournment. Is there a motion?
No, you need to pass the gavel.
Oh, I need to pass the
Well,
gavel.
actually, there's no one to pass it to.
Okay,
You're
then
it.
we'll leave the gavel right there. Okay. Here you go, Doc. Okay, thank you, Doc.
Exactly.
All right, and I'm ready to use it so that we can adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? It's been motioned by Mr. Lotzenheiser. I think I heard Ms. Fisher with the second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, no.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn this meeting signify by raising your right hand. Meeting adjourned. So now that we've returned back to regular session, we are at the point of our agenda to approve the claims docket for this month. Board, we've had an opportunity to review the docket. This does require an action. Is there a motion to approve? It's been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on our agenda is the last item, and that is to adjourn the meeting. Does require an action. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Meeting is adjourned.